with all sorts of things in sports and entertainment. And now, here are your hosts, David.
Wrestling with things. Let's hit on some of the hottest topics in the sports and entertainment world. Just very recently, The Undertaker, the dead man, the former WWE champion himself, was on the Joe Rogan podcast. As we know, The Undertaker retired earlier this year, and he's finally doing out-of-character interviews after 30 plus years. And I found this quote interesting, Sammy, and I really want to get your thoughts on it really bad because I thought it's really interesting to pick apart. He said this in response to Joe Rogan asking him about, whether he follows the current product now that he's retired and watching as a fan. And his Undertaker's response was, that era of guys too, those were men. Speaking of era in his era, you go into the dressing room nowadays or the locker room, it's a lot different. I remember walking into my first real locker room and all I saw were some crusty fucking men, right? Half of them had guns, half of them had knives in their bags. Shit got handled back then, Now you walk in, there's guys playing video games and fucking making shit. It's evolution, I guess. I don't know what it is, but I just prefer when men were men. Sammy, what the hell are your thoughts?
Oh, first things first. That was a hell of an interview too. I didn't finish it. I watched like the first 45 minutes of it, but it was a hell of an interview, man. He was straight shooting, and he was straight telling it exactly how it is. But I think that's a bad sign. It's a bad sign for the future of sports entertainment. It's a bad sign that a guy like that who's basically seen it all, so nobody can question this man. Like, this dude's been in since like 1990. The fact that he's saying it's soft and he's saying they're not even men, you know what I mean? I think that's a bad sign, because when you look at guys right in the room and you could just tell they're not men, what are they gonna do for the future of the product? How are they gonna really get into a real character? You see what I mean, Dave? Like a real true to life character. How are they gonna embody that? How are they gonna capture that? You know what I mean? Because usually you hear guys in wrestling talk, and guys in wrestling, they usually say they're at their best when their character's true to them. They usually say they're at their best when, it's them being themselves in front of everybody, and it's
with the volume turned up.
Yeah, with just a little bit of extra taste to it. You know what I mean? So if Undertaker's saying this, I think that is not a good sign for the future of this company. It's not a good sign for the future of wrestling, because guys have to be men, and guys have to be tough, and guys got to be true to themselves. You know what I mean? It's basically him saying that it's not real anymore. Nobody's real.
Well, I don't think he was saying it with that, but I think you make some great points. The fact that it's The Undertaker, he's seen it all. He's been through the Hogan era, the Ruthless Aggression era, the Attitude era, you name it. The Undertaker has seen it. So we got to take his word, I don't want to say as gospel, but we kind of have to take his word as gospel. It's I take it as gospel too. But, I think you're absolutely right about that. But I don't think he was necessarily saying it as, I question the manhood and the toughness and the grind of the current locker room. I think this was just ultimately his way of saying, the gritty toughness and the almost anything could happen environment that his era had, and even the old school eras in the Hogan era, and even in the 80s and late 70s, I think he was just saying he prefers that environment and that locker room because iron sharpens iron. Tough love makes great tough superstars, and toughness is just what he was used to. I think this was just his way saying, I prefer my era because that's what I'm used to, and that's what looks like it produced the best results. I ain't mad at that because there's a lot of truth to that. But so I don't really think he was looking at it like, these guys don't got heart or anything. And And I know some idiot will look at those quotes and think, oh, he's saying these people should stop playing video games and have knives and guns on them. Nah, I don't think he was saying that at all. I think he was just trying to make a point of the grittiness that he grew into the business with. And, of course, when you grew into it and you used to it, you would miss it and think it's a valuable part that's needed today. And I agree with that to some degree. And before I pass it back over to you, I just want to highlight to me, I also find interesting is it's almost like you see like a crazy parallel with the NBA and the WWE in that respect, because we heard Michael Jordan on The Last Dance. We heard about him walking into the locker room as a young man, and there's women everywhere, drugs, coke, weed, and all of that, and then you see Undertaker, who came in the '90s as well, and wrestled in the '80s as well a little bit, talking about locker room with the grittiness of all that other stuff, the drugs, the women, the. I just find that very interesting that two separate genres and entities and sports, entertainment conglomerates have similar parallels in that respect during those times.
But I feel what you're saying, and I don't think I agree with you. I don't think he was saying they wasn't like real men, but I do think he was saying that the hunger, what I mean, that guys had to be the number one, or to be the guy who was running things, or to be the guy who was getting the top levels of everything. I think that's missing. What I mean? I think he's saying that part was missing. That's what I think he was saying when he used the word soft. What I mean? Because when you look back in his heyday, what I mean, there wasn't a guy out there who didn't want to be the head of the table, like Roman Reigns says. What I mean? There wasn't a dude out there who didn't want that. What I mean? It was there, and they were willing to dupe you over for it. They were willing to go behind your back and kill you for it. Basically, they were willing to what I mean, chop your knees off. Yeah, they didn't care. They just wanted that number one spot, and I think that is definitely missing. You could see it on the television, basically. What I mean? There's not a whole bunch of people in that locker room nowadays who really feel like what I mean, they should run things. They should have that next spot. They should have that number one thing where what I mean, they look like the next Cena, or they look like the next Austin. Not everybody wants that nowadays, and I think that was a mega thing screaming out when he used that word soft.
I do think that he's hitting the nail on. I think he's like I agree with you 100%. By the way, I don't think enough guys try to be one with their characters and make it as real as you could possibly make it to suspend people's disbelief. I agree with that, but ultimately, he was clearly saying like the grittiness in the presentation of things is just lacking. And I think that's the main issue if you were to critique this era to me. There's a certain grittiness. It's not about blood and stupid stunts like AEW or the original ECW. It's about just the presentation. Like, think about it. Back then, on average, you will see a grown-looking man that's about 6'2", 230, 240 pounds. Now, I mean, I don't have a problem with. I'm not a size discriminant, but at the end of the day, now the average person is a 190, 200 pound, 5'11", 6 foot guy. It's like you're going from. It's just presentation. It's just what people see at first. They don't look as much like grown men, and even that's not the biggest problem. It's the presentation. It's like there's supposed to be grit. That going the extra mile to make it feel like you hate each other. I think that's what's really missing. It's like all these guys are not protecting the business. to the point where they're making it real and making it seem like, yo, I really can't stand this guy. I really want that title more than anything because you're supposed to want it. Like, there's not that extra mile to make it authentic.
And you can hear it. You can hear it even when some of these guys talk. Like when AJ Styles says, "I'm the face that runs the place." I believe him. You know what I mean? I believe he really feels like he runs the place out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When Roman says, "Yo, I'm the head of the table," I believe him. When
Yeah.
Roman says, "I'm the Messiah," I believe that dude. You know what I mean? Because it's just some of these guys that they wear it with their chest. You know what I mean? They want to make sure that they feel like they're in that spot. You know what I mean? They want to make sure that they are on those top spots. But most these other guys, you know what I mean? They just good with what they got. You know what I mean?
They're happy to have a job.
Yeah.
It seems like.
It really what it is. They just go with taking anything. They just as long as they're on camera, you know what I mean. It seems like they're good with all of that. You know what I mean. You can hear it in how these people deliver their talks and they deliver their promos.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought I agree, man. I look forward to any interview that involves the Undertaker because he doesn't hold back. He keeps it real. He even said, "I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off" before he said it, but he doesn't hold back. He makes every minute of that interview worth listening to, man. I love when we get to hear him out of character now. But I just want to quickly transition into WrestleMania. Stephanie McMahon, it was reported on TMZ, Stephanie McMahon was in a Zoom call and said they are planning on having fans in attendance once again. They're going to keep an eye on how the Super Bowl goes. They're looking at about a reduced capacity about 25,000. So they're not going to try to sell it out and pack it up like 80,000 plus usually. But 25,000 sounds like a decent number. What do you think about having fans back in attendance?
See, this part really confuses me because I want to know. I would love to have the fans, you know what I mean? Because I love hearing people, you know, scream and react to things whenever something happens. But my thing is, how are you going to determine who's good enough to be there and who's good enough to not be there? That's. I want to know that method. You know what I mean? I want to know what are they trying to do to, you know, really get that answer, because you got 25,000 people. At the end of the day, that's a lot of people to check up on and to see, you know what I mean, who's COVID free, who's not. You know what I mean? How do I know if this person's COVID free? Is there really a method out there to determine that yet?
That's a very good question. I wonder what they're going to come up with to try to make it as safe as possible. I don't think there is a method that you could almost guarantee at least 25,000 people won't at least, have it completely or be at risk. But I only could imagine that they might at least require everyone that comes to at least have a negative test. I think that's a start. If I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't want nothing to happen to nobody. I'm gonna stay at my house and watch it like a fan. But man, if the Super Bowl goes down safely, I can't blame them for wanting to let people back in. I want people back into the stands for the big shows at least. I could maybe take the Thunderdome a little bit, but I can't take pay-per-views at the Thunderdome with virtual fans anymore. I can't take it anymore. I cracked. I was trying to be politically correct and saying, nah, they should hold it back. And they've done a good job, I think, with considering the circumstances, just like the NBA. But I think it's time, man. WrestleMania, you have to let live noise be made.
No, I agree, man. If the Super Bowl does pull it off without, you know what I mean, no drama, no nonsense, then I know Vince is such a good businessman that he's gonna want to join into the party too. I know he can't resist, because that's think about it. That's a check that, you know what I mean, everybody could benefit off of.
And that you can't let two WrestleManias in an empty gets echoing empty warehouse performance. You can't do two empty arenas in a row. You just can't.
The last one was so hard to watch.
You're lucky you let the first one go. Vince is a stubborn guy. He was fighting it at first.
It's so hard to watch too.
It's different.
It's so hard to watch. You know, all the noise effects. You know what I mean? All the sound effects. You know, I like hearing those loud roars when something crazy is happening, because it lets you know that there's a classic moment going on right now. It's hard to tell what's a classic moment.
Yeah.
Moment.
It's like now you could tell by looking like, oh, that was pretty cool just by seeing the sequence, but you can't tell what is really getting over with the fans. Like, that's how you know who's getting over in an organic way in front of 15,000, 20,000, 80,000. That's how you know who has the crowd in the palm of their hands. And it's just necessary now, man. And I just can't wait, man. I hope at least they try to finagle something for the Royal Rumble. But if we start at WrestleMania and getting fans, I'm happy with that.
Royal Rumble is definitely, that's gonna be too soon.
You need people to count down, though. Do that. The 5, 10.
You do.
That's tradition.
But it's too soon. That's why I like how WWE is playing it right now. They're trying to watch and see, you know, if this person messes up.
Yeah,
we can back off and say we wasn't gonna do that.
Yeah, that's basically what they said, dude.
Yeah, like I like how they're playing it. It's such a good chess move. You know what I mean? Just to let somebody else get their feet wet first, and then you could put your whole full foot in there if it goes good. Because, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's certain things. You know, it's just certain things that we're so traditionally used to loving that the minute it's away, it's like, you know, am I watching the same thing anymore? You know what I mean? Is this really going good? You know what I mean? Because a lot of wrestlers, I think they wouldn't, you know, be in the position they're in. You know what I mean? If there was fans there, I really believe that.
I feel like for the most part, everybody's where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
The only thing that definitely wouldn't have happened is Otis would have never won the Money in the Bank if there was fans.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fans would have chewed that up, man. they would have destroyed that. You know, you know, the Oscar thing too.
This guy, man, he's taking shots at Oscar. She's been champion before the pandemic. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, but that was when she was fresh and she was a fresh guy.
Oh my Jesus!
Everything was new, so people were loving it at the time, and plus she had the good streak she was coming off of. So, but now. I don't think that would have went well with the fans if it was in front of 15,000 at least.
All right, we'll see about that, man. I think she's been doing a hell of a job, but